NFL 2025, we're going to give you our projected records for all teams. Now, what we've done here, there's four of us here. We did a best case and a worst case, so we come up with the average of the two. So you're not going to see any 15-win, 14-win predictions here. We're going to also give you our forecasted playoff teams. Won't give you the seedings except for the number one seeds. But let's start here first with the NFC, and we get right into the NFC East, of course, with the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Giants, and the Commanders. Almost said Redskins, can't say that anymore. So we'll start off here with the Giants. We see them coming in at 7-10. We see now that they don't have Daniel Jones anymore. Questions at quarterback. We think they should just start the rookie Jackson Dart. He makes it out of preseason, okay. We think it's a rebuilding year, even though we love that defense. We see them at 7-10. Cowboys is a team we don't particularly like, being Texans fans, but we see a bounce-back year for them. We don't believe Dak is elite. We think that he might be one of the most overpaid right there with Trevor Lawrence and Tua. We see them finishing 9-8 and contending at least for a wild card. We see Jaden Daniels building on his great rookie season, and the Commanders finishing 10-7, second place in the East, just behind the Eagles. That playoff game run was phenomenal. We think that if the Eagles slip, look out for the Commanders to take first place in the East. But for now, we're going to stay with the defending Super Bowl champions. We see them finishing 11-6. Might slip a little bit early with some of the departures in the secondary, but we think with that offensive balance, we really like what Saquon brought to that team. And, of course, the receivers, you have two number ones with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And we always thought Jalen Hurts was a little bit underrated. So we like the Eagles here, 11-6, first in the NFC North. We think this is, again, the best division in football. But this year, we think any four of these teams can make the playoffs. So when you see how we predict these teams, don't get mad. We think all four of these could make the playoffs. But we'll start with Detroit, 15-game winner last year. We don't think they'll come close to that this season. Too many things had to break right. Then, of course, they collapse in the playoffs. Typical Detroit luck if you ask any Lions fan. But we think they'll be right back in the mix. We think 11 wins is more realistic than anywhere near 14 or 15. We think they will take time to adjust after losing Ben Johnson. That is a key departure. Green Bay Packers, we don't like the fact that they lost Jair Alexander. As Packers fans will say, though, he rarely played, but we think that he was a big difference maker on defense. We think Jordan Love could be elite, but still he has moments like that in which he goes up and down, so we have to wait and see. But we've always liked the Packers. We see them finishing 10-7 and second in this very competitive NFC North. And a team that could take second, could finish third, we have them just up next, and that's the Minnesota Vikings. Get a lot of grief from Vikings fans. We don't always pick them. We tend to be a little bit critical, but we love what Kevin O'Connell's done, reigning coach of the year. And then Brian Flores, we think he should get a head coaching job somewhere. But having two head coach caliber minds is great. What Sam Darnold did last year was great up until the final two games of the season, and we think it'll take J.J. McCarthy a little bit of time to adjust, leading a team. We see them again 9-8, contending for second, but we see them finishing third, again, in the very competitive NFC North. The potential surprise team in the NFC North has got to be the Chicago Bears. We were really high on coaching. Obviously, we know how impactful a head coach can be. We think Ben Johnson is going to be a great add for the Bears. If he can work anywhere close to what he did with Jared Goff, do the same thing with Caleb Williams, this team could be competitive early. And we think that the potential has always been there. The moves they made to shore up the offensive line, I think the defense needs a little bit of improvement. We think the Bears should be 9-8, tying the Vikings, but finishing fourth in that division. The NFC South with the Falcons, the Panthers, the Saints, and the Bucs. We see this division as being a two-team race with the Buccaneers and the Falcons. Had interesting games last year. The Falcons won both, so curious to see how they do head-to-head. But we think the Tampa Bay Bucs, with what Baker provides on offense, again, we never understood why the Browns gave up on him after one questionable year. I think we had an injury in that year anyway, but especially considering their quarterback carousel and the lack of stability there. But with the receivers, now you've got Bucky Irving to balance out the offense, adding the run dimension, and one of the best run defenses in the NFL, and we've always liked Todd Bowles. So we think the Bucs win again. We think this will be the fifth straight season in which they've won the NFC South. I'm very impressed there. We like the Bucs again to finish as NFC South champions. But if they do slip just a little bit, the guys that play at Mercedes-Benz might be able to overtake them. And again, they won both games head-to-head. Always like Michael Penix Jr. It brings that explosive element, but he's got to stay healthy and has to prove that he can be consistent. We saw flashes in the end of 2024 season, but we need more than that, and they need to avoid the big play like that. We know that was Kirk Cousins, but those turnovers that kept them from making the playoffs. We like them finishing with a winning record, 9-8, second in the NFC South. Again, we've said it 3 times. If they can win the games against the Bucs head-to-head, got a great shot at winning that division. If you ask a Panther fan, the end of the 2024 season was enough reason to have optimism that Bryce Young is going to improve. As a pessimist, I would counter that and say a season and a half of poor performance kind of balances out those few good games they did have. But there was definite improvement late. That near win against the Eagles, if this pass is caught, we think they win that game. And a couple of close losses as well, lost to Kansas City by 3. But we still think they're a work in progress. We see them at 7-10 and in third place. Time to rebuild for the Saints with a new head coach and a new quarterback after Derek Carr's surprising retirement announcement. They were really heading towards a rebuild anyway, and this is the perfect time to just admit it and go ahead, not try to be competitive this year and just tank one season and then come out swinging the next couple of years. We think the Saints had some bad luck after a great 2-0 start. We think they should, again, rebuild. We expect them to go 4-13 and be in last place in the South as they look towards a better future starting next year. The NFC West, which gives us the Cardinals, the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers, a really good division this year. Could be sneaky good, actually. We're going to start off first with the team we think will win the division, and that's the defending division champ, LA Rams. What more can be said about the Rams, what they've done under Sean McVay? After one bad year in 2022, they've been competitive for the past couple. Of course, they won the Super Bowl, we think, 4 years ago against the Bengals, and we think they'll be right back in the mix. We love that offense. Matthew Stafford, his career has totally been revived ever since he came over from the Lions. But with the receivers, Puka Nacua, now they added Devontae Adams. We think, again, they're going to win the NFC West, and we see them finishing 10-7. It's going to be close, though, with the 49ers and the Seahawks. We like them to defend the NFC West title. And next up, we have the San Francisco 49ers. We really believe last season was a combination of horrible injuries, specifically Christian McCaffrey and others, and the dreaded Super Bowl hangover from losing the game to the Chiefs. A game we truly believe they should have won had McCaffrey not fumbled it. But we think they're back. We know they've lost a few players, and we think but we still trust what Kyle Shanahan can do with that offense. Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Ayuk, and once they're ready, and on defense, you've still got Nick Bosa. You've got Fred Warner, a couple key players. We think they're going to be very competitive. They're going to give the Rams a run for their money, and we think they'll finish 9-8. Curious if they can make a wild card. It's going to be tough in the NFC. A lot of strong teams. We think they're going to be back more to their true form than what they were last year. We're curious how many non-Seahawk fans realize that the Seahawks tied the Rams for the NFC West last year, just lost due to tiebreak. And this season, we think their fortunes are going to depend on which Sam Darnold shows up. Is it the one that looked like an MVP candidate early, or the one that faded late in two really tough games against the Lions and the Rams? We think it's going to be somewhere in between. We think this team has the potential to even have 11 wins if the right Darnold shows up. But as of now, we picked them 9-8. Cardinals are another team that were very competitive last year, finishing 8-9, but having, again, a better point differential than the Rams, 40 points better. But that doesn't matter. They couldn't win the key games, the close games, but they've got the offensive talent to do it with Marvin Harrison Jr. You got Kyler Murray, Trey McBride, one of the better tight ends in the league. We think they're going to continue to find ways to struggle, however, and they will finish 6-11, fourth in the West, regressing a little bit from last season, largely because this is just a very tough division. And before we get to our AFC record predictions, just a reminder for the NFC playoff predictions, we're doing them all at the end of this video along with our initial Super Bowl predictions, so stay tuned for that. But now we'll talk about the AFC East, the Bills, the Dolphins, the Pats, and the Jets. Let's start off with the division champ, the reigning division champ, Buffalo Bills, featuring reigning MVP Josh Allen, one of his best seasons, if not the best he's ever had last year. And we think the primary reason for this was cutting down on interceptions. Prior to last season, he had been a little bit wild with the ball, kind of like Brett Favre back in his heyday. Put up unbelievable numbers, but would throw a critical interception late. Improved on that. We'd like the Bills here to repeat as champs. And next we have the Miami Dolphins. Not a lot of excitement here in South Florida about the Dolphins. They seem to follow the same pattern. They look competitive early and then fade late. They play well in South Florida and in indoor conditions, but can't handle weather. We think another mediocre finish here, and we would expect this likely to be Mike McDaniel's final season here and for them to start going into rebuild. We like them 7-10 and second in the East. When we look at the New England Patriots, we see a bright future ahead of them, but we also look at the 2024 season. This was a 4-13 team. They've made a lot of offseason improvements, but it's not like they can make a 4-win jump to an 11-win season. It doesn't happen that quickly. We think they're going to make a marginal improvement. We like them finishing 7-10, third in the AFC East, but again, look at next season as when they could possibly make the jump to maybe a 9 or 10-win season. We feel the same way about the Jets as what we just said about the Patriots. You have a team with tremendous upside, but it will take at least another season. They're coming off a 5-12 season in which Aaron Rodgers actually put up good statistics. We think it'll take another year before they are ready to compete for the playoffs, so we look to them to go 7-10 this season, finishing fourth in the AFC East. A great division here, the AFC North with the Ravens, the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Browns. Let's talk first about the defending division champ, Baltimore Ravens. We think a truly disappointing team. We honestly believe most talented team in the league, despite the Chiefs, despite the Eagles, just can't get it done. And we think Lamar Jackson is a generational talent. We think we did this video before the MVP was announced, looking at the two statistics between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. You see here, Lamar Jackson had almost 1,000 more total yards, 5 more touchdowns, and 2 fewer interceptions. You'll see Josh Allen's stats. There we go. And still didn't win it. We think at least it should have been a co-MVP. But he's still easily top 3 quarterback in the league. We think the Ravens are going to be better this year. We like the addition of Jair Alexander to make that secondary really, really good. So we think the Ravens will be tops in the AFC North this season. If the Bengals can just avoid another slow start, we think they are a lock for the playoffs, but that's easier said than done. They were definitely one of the hotter teams at the end of the season in 2024, but can't seem to get out of their own way. But this season they benefit from a weaker schedule. Should be a little easier run. We like them 10-7 and second in the North behind the Ravens. But if they can handle the Ravens head-to-head, look out, they could be a surprise division champ. The decision to pick the Bengals ahead of the Steelers was a tough one. We think that is going to be a really tough battle all season long. We like both these teams. We think the addition of Aaron Rodgers gives you that veteran leadership to stabilize the quarterback position. Of course, they've already got that great defense. But we think Aaron Rodgers, if he can get the protection, he didn't have a lot of protection last year, a lot of sacks. But again, that defense with T.J. Watt and what Mike Tomlin does, and he generally overachieves in our opinion. But we see them now, conservatively, we're going to say 9-8. We would not be surprised if they go a little higher than that and maybe take second place away from the Bengals. But the schedule is a little tougher. And for the Cleveland Browns, a lot of unknowns, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Who's going to be the starting quarterback? You got 4 guys out in there that are competing for the job. Don't have Jameis anymore, but they'll probably go with Joe Flacco since he was with them and on that playoff run 2 years back. But we see them rebuilding and 4-13 finish. And the AFC South with the Texans, Colts, Jags, and Titans. Let's start first with the Texans. The major weakness of the Texans in 2024 was the offensive line, but in our research, we think it was more of a scheme issue than a personnel issue. We think if they could shore that up and use the right scheme for the personnel, C.J. Stroud will have more time to pass. Got a good set of receivers, but we think the Texans excel on defense. Great pass rush and one of the best secondaries in the league. That's why we feel they'll finish 11-6 and first in the South. And this could be the year, of course, we are Texans fans, we'll admit it, that they make a deeper run in the playoffs than prior seasons. To us, the biggest question in the AFC South is, do the Colts finally have their quarterback? We see Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. We understand they both have potential, but Jones is an interception risk, and Anthony Richardson has a bad throwing motion. He doesn't set his feet right from what we've seen in the tape we've analyzed. We think that they have the potential, but for now we're going to say they're going to be 9-8 and finish second in the South behind the Texans. The Jacksonville Jaguars, we had to look this stat up. We couldn't believe it. The Jags are 5-18 in their last 23 games going back to the 2023 season when they started off 8-3. Total collapse after that. We think this year's team should be improved. We still think they're going to be a little short of the playoffs. We have them coming in 8-9, third in the AFC South. We'll have to see if Trevor Lawrence can improve with newly added Travis Hunter. Should be at least a little bit more exciting. Remember back in the day when rookie quarterbacks would sit at least for half a season? Not the case anymore. Recent success, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, and 2 years back, C.J. Stroud. We're curious to see if Cam Ward can follow with that trend and as a rookie lead his team to the playoffs. It's been done obviously recently, but we think the Titans don't have the personnel to allow that. We think the Titans will be 6-11, finish fourth in the South. Gone are the days when the AFC West was a one-team division. Now we've got the Chiefs, the Broncos, Chargers, and look out for the Raiders in a few years. But we think this year it could come down to between the Broncos, Chargers, or Chiefs who wins this division. But we'll start off talking about the Broncos, who were very impressive on both sides of the ball last season, but most specifically on defense. While Bo Nix was impressive as a rookie, really did well in Sean Payton's offense, the defense was great against the pass and the rush, had by far more sacks than any other team in the NFL. We think that's going to continue this season. We see them challenging for the division, finishing 10-7, but losing out on a tiebreaker to the defending champion Chiefs, who always seem to get the benefit of those tiebreakers. And Chiefs fans were unhappy with us initially, and we predicted that they would only have a 10-win season. But you're not going to have too many 15-win seasons in the NFL. It just doesn't work that way. The Chiefs had a lot of breaks last season, including some questionable calls, like this one against my Texans. That was not roughing the passer. Sorry, it just was not. So we think the Chiefs will win the AFC West because they always seem to find a way. Mahomes, who can question that playoff success, but we think they will only have a 10-win season as opposed to 15 wins last year. Then the LA Chargers, again, they could win the AFC West. They've got a great running game. We do have questions about Justin Herbert, but we like the way Jim Harbaugh has handled that team, balancing out the run and the pass. We like that approach in this kind of pass-heavy NFL. But we think the Chargers will fall just a little bit short. We see them finishing 9-8 and third in the AFC West. And again, look out for the Raiders this year to play spoiler, and then next year to maybe contend for the playoffs, if not the division championship. We like the pieces they're putting together. We like Brock Bowers, the tight end. They drafted Ashton Genty, bringing Geno Smith over. And, of course, head coach Pete Carroll has a Super Bowl pedigree. We think they're going to improve this year, 7-10, but ultimately be fourth in the AFC West because it's such a strong division. Let's take an early look at our playoff predictions for 2025. Very risky to put this out in July, but we'll take a shot at it anyway. And we'll give you the first-round matchups as we predict them, and then the teams that we think will have the first-round byes. And we'll start with those teams. We think the Ravens will have the bye in the AFC, and we think the Lions will get that in the NFC. Not really a stretch with those two teams. And the first-round matchups, we see some interesting ones. Bengals at the Bills. We see the Broncos back in it facing the Texans. And then Aaron Rodgers versus Patrick Mahomes and the Steelers-Chiefs matchup should be a lot better than in prior years when those two teams have faced off. Then in the NFC side, we believe the Commanders will face the Rams, the Packers, and the Buccaneers, the Battle of the Bays. And then San Francisco gets back into the playoffs narrowly, and then they face the Eagles. So we see some really interesting first-round matchups there. Again, hit us up in the comments. Let us know what you think, how wrong we are, or if our picks are just absolutely golden. And for our Super Bowl prediction, there are 4 of us here that do these, and we had 4 different votes. So we had to come up with a consensus, and I think this will please most fans out there. What went against what I personally wanted, I had the Ravens in it, but who can overlook or not consider their recent playoff failures? So the consensus pick that we have would be the Buffalo Bills and the Detroit Lions facing off in the Super Bowl. Should be an interesting matchup. I think a lot of the fans have wanted this for quite a few years. We think both teams should have an easier run this season. Should be a great matchup.
That's all for this time. Thank you for joining. Please subscribe to our channel, and we look forward to sharing our future videos with you.